Hello and welcome to Theoretically Practical. Today we're here with my buddy's New Holland TC26DA, and it has a axle seal leak and a potentially bad bearing. And basically the reason why we're filming it is because there was no videos on how to do this on YouTube currently. So seemed like a good thing to do. He's already cleaned off the area and stripped it out. I feel like there's a little bit of wiggle in the shaft, but it's not that easy to see. So it's hard to say whether or not that's the problem. But this shaft seal here, which I'll bring you guys over to look at, this shaft seal right there is definitely leaking. It's clean right now because it hasn't been run, and again, he cleaned it, but there is a little bit of wiggle in the shaft that doesn't seem like it should be there. So we're gonna pull this whole assembly off and see what we got. And at least we got to replace the seal, and at worst we got to replace the seal in the outer and inner bearing. So just quickly, to get to this point, there's a subframe that's part of, this has a little backhoe on it. It's a lovely little tractor, it really is nice. It's a 26 horsepower, 2-cylinder diesel, 2-cylinder? 3. It's a 26 horsepower, 3-cylinder diesel. As you can tell, I know this machine very, very well. But yeah, so the subframe was removed, and the side cover here, flange, no, fender, that's a word, is also removed. So we're gonna just, show you guys pulling this off, and then we'll see what we see on the inside. This side's a little bit different because we also have this lever right here, which is for the differential lock. So I don't know how much that's gonna interfere with our plans, but no, we should have this puppy off in a few minutes. This really shouldn't be a bad job. Definitely something that the average tractor owner should do. Nope. This bolt's never been off before, has it?
Nope.
All right. The question is, how much fluid is there? Is it less than 1 turkey pan worth? We will find out right now. Oh, it's less than 1 quart. And there's nothing suspicious in it.
Let's see.
I wouldn't reuse it though, because it's definitely got some
it's a little
schmoo in it. All right, so we're just gonna pull the brake cover off here. It's mostly drained, but it's just drizzling, so at least it's something we can do to keep busy on the time. And it'll be like 5 less pounds that we have to hoist off of this. I actually do have an engine hoist here, but I want to try to do it the hard way first because, that's how you roll. There we go. So there's the brakes on this. They're actually there's a wet plate brake. Oh, neat. Those look pretty good though. Real simple. Just twisting of this pushes this plate forward and squishes on these guys. And then the centerpiece with the T on it gets captivated in the slot, and that's how your brakes brake. We're gonna put this off to the side though. Keep it stacked in the same order. You don't want to flip those plates over, anything like that, if you can help it. They're not, the brakes aren't worn out, so. Oh, this is bad. Okay, yeah. Wow, right from the factory, look at all this extra goop. Come on, guys. It's lucky this didn't get in the transmission and ruin it. All right, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but this is the differential lock. So it's it's like a dog clutch style. So there's 2 teeth here and 2 teeth there, and it comes up on here, you push on it, and then it'll rotate in and then lock it up. And that's how the differential's locked up. But on this, there's about a 20,000 shoulder of wear and a little chunk missing there. And this one's got another little chunk there. And again, 20,000 wear. And then this one, which you guys can see a lot better, look at this corner is ripped up pretty good. And both the corners are raised. And this is also a machine where, if I'm not mistaken, you don't use the differential lock much.
No, only stuck.
So if the differential lock isn't used very much, and this is caused by the diff lock you know, just rubbing on there. So I'd almost think it's just, you know, sitting there trying to engage a little bit. And, oh yeah, there we go. There's the good stuff down here. And then the bottom of this, there's the missing bits of differential stuff. So hopefully, you know, at least if they go down here, they're not going to get up and in the system and be able to go around places. But yeah, there's definitely more what we expected to see. So that doesn't mean that the bearing's not still bad or that there's not something else to be done here. But this definitely could use a little bit of attention before it goes back together again. So, all right, we're going to get the transmission that's below that you can't see back up on the table, take a closer look at it, and then we'll pull it apart, check the bearings, which now I'm thinking are probably fine, but we got to take it all apart to get the bearing seal out, which leaks. So here it is off the machine. It's a portal axle. It's called a portal axle because you got, this is the drive shaft from the engine, and you have a gear that offsets it. It's also giving you a really high gear ratio or low gear ratio. I put the diff lock back on just so we could see. There's a little pin here that it slides on and a little ball on the end of that pushes it back and forth. That part of it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like there might have been a couple of chunks get in there, but and the little fork looks okay. There's a little wear on that, which you definitely expect seeing the damage on there. So what we're going to try to do next is take off this god-awful snap ring without snap ring pliers because I didn't bring my snap ring pliers. So what do we got? There we go. And just I didn't even wreck it too bad. Well, you want to do the honors? See if it'll. Well, looks like a bearing. Oh, well, that came out.
Yeah.
That might have been your chirping. Look in the race. It's definitely polished a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd probably put retaining compound in there. Oh yeah, you can see the OD of that. Here. So one of the things he had was a little chirping in the rear end as well as the leaking. So we suspected a bad bearing. Now this bearing isn't bad. It definitely feels good, but there's some lines that run like this on it, polished lines. And there's polished lines in the casing, which does mean from time to time, this bearing is probably rotating in the casing. And there's a couple of different ways to go about fixing that. The best way is bearing retaining compound. It's like Loctite something. I don't know. If this was an old piece of junk machine, you just take a prick, like a center punch, and put a bunch of little dings in it. And that'll get you by until it doesn't. But on this, we're going to do it right. So we're going to be gluing the bearing in essentially, but it does work. So this could be the cause of the noise issue, but we'll keep trying to pound that shaft out, and we'll come back when we've got it separate. Okay, so this is the main shaft here. And the big thing we'd want to look for is this is where the sealing surface goes. And on this one, there's like a little rime of paint there, which is fine, but there's no dings, dents, there's no rust pitting, there's no problems with it. And then where the bearing sits, where this bearing sits, it looks pretty good. It's a little bit polished, and we're gonna see why in just a minute. And this bearing surface as well, it's part of the spline, but it's polished a little differently so you can tell. Also looks really nice. And so we're looking at this here, which I'll bring on over. And you got this bearing here. Feels good, feels nice. The bearing on the inside, I'm going to try to bring you guys over to see it, but I don't think you will. Oh yeah, see that little squiggly boy in the middle there? That would be the ball cage for the other bearing. So the diagnosis of bad bearing is absolutely 100% correct. And yeah, so even though there was very little wiggle, the squeaking noise was probably just the sound of that race just rubbing on something. And it would probably happen once in a while and then get kind of squished out of the way. So yeah, that whole cage is just blown out in there. So that's a good thing though, because now we have a problem, we have a solution that should fix the problem. You know, we'll probably still put bearing retaining compound in, because even this bearing I was able to pull halfway out just by touching it. It just doesn't seem right to me, and there's no negative to gluing that in, I would think. So yeah, we'll just pop the bearings out, and then we'll pop the seal will come out too. So one thing it's good to have is a nice piece of aluminum dowel to pound things out with, because at least this won't ruin anything. You know, getting that shaft out, we used a bronze hammer, and you know, which if you're using the aluminum drift, you don't need the bronze hammer, but don't hit it with a steel hammer. Like, don't be that guy, because then you'll regret being that guy, and it's expensive to be that guy, and nobody will like you anymore. Well, there's your problem, lady. And because that was so bad, it definitely tore up this front seal. There's actually pieces missing out of this lip here. It's a really heavy-duty lip. So if your thing starts making some creaking noises, it's definitely been spinning in the housing a little bit. Oh yeah. And the glitter factory is definitely down there too. You guys probably can't see down in that hole, but it's got glittery goodness down there. So you ever watch like Gold Rush and the guys ignore a noise on the machine and it becomes a huge problem? Well, if that race had come out anymore, it would have taken out the inner race. If the inner race took out and lost balls, and actually the very good question is, not where's Waldo, but where's Waldo's balls? He's missing about 4 of them on this one. There you go. So if you ignored that, this little piece of chunk is gonna go down inside of it and get in the other one. And really, you know, once that one goes, then this gear won't be traveling where it's supposed to. And if you ignore that noise a little more, you'll strip all the teeth off. You'll go from a $100, $150 part worth of job to like a you know, $1,000 job, just like that. There we go.
Yeah.
So, and this bearing is fine, but will probably get replaced, because don't be cheap, you know. See, this one moves nice, rolls nice. Yeah, you wouldn't believe it though. This thing felt fine in there, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, we're back with the old New Holland. Well, you guys are still here, but I'm back. It's a week later. We got a new outer bearing for here, a new outer seal for here, and then a new inner bearing for under there. We're just gonna put a little bearing retainer on there. We're using a Loctite high temperature sleeve retainer because that's what was available to put this in. If you had a press, a good trick is you can take the outer race of the old bearing and you put a slit in it, which I have not done, with like an angle grinder or whatnot, and you can use that to press it in, and because there's a slit, it'll come right back out easily. I've done that before. It works well. These are just such a light fit that I'm not gonna worry about it. Because we're gonna use the retaining compound though, we're also gonna take a little brake cleaner and just put it on a little rag and wipe everything out, just so that, you know, if there's oil in the interface, I don't think that bearing retainer will work particularly well. And just a little dab will do ya. So, do that, leave it around. So, there we go. And just wipe the outside of the race off. I don't think you need a ton of this either. Again, just a little bit. We'll see. I'm gonna pour it all over the thing like it's my job. But now, if anybody knows better than me about how much you should use, go ahead and speak up in the comments. But I just put a little stripe around it. Nothing, no big deal. You know, not a huge amount. And you just take your bearing, get it in the hole. You got to make sure you line it up well. This is where a press would be nice, but this casing is too big to fit in any press I have. So we'll do that, and I'm going to start tapping with this. You may not be able to see. I'm going to be very careful to just tap the edge. I'm not tapping the middle race. You don't want to put any pressure on here, or you'll pretty much be back to where you started from. keep working your way around. And now I've got a aluminum drift to go the rest of the way, so. So you could hear the tone change, and that's when I hit the bottom of this. And that I still went around a little bit just to make sure it was seated well. Now I'm just gonna wipe off the excess sleeve retainer. So next you got this bearing. It's this part number. It's not a bearing either, it's a seal. And then with something like this, just be really careful. This is gonna be the inside, the metal surface, whereas, you know, the writing and whatnot's usually the outer surface. You don't wanna put it in backwards. I don't know that it won't work, but it'll definitely change the lifespan of it. So we'll get this one right there. I try to push it in, and then I am gonna use the outer sleeve to get this going because I don't wanna hit it with a hammer if I can avoid it. That side more. Go, we're getting there. This definitely is tighter than I expected, not in a bad way, but just as a point of reference. Go. Now the manual tells you to use a tool for this, but it's just gonna sink it just below the surface. There's kind of a chamfer here, and I'm just gonna aim for the bottom of the chamfer with the top of this. And again, I'll go around because right now I've got a little bit high on this point, and you just kind of got to get it in there. And I think this one's in, golden. And we got to put the shaft for the other bit in. So I'm going to pause it and we'll get back to that. Okay, so we're not going to put, and actually I haven't done this wrong yet, so we'll see. But I'm not going to put this bearing in because it has such a loose seat in there that when we put the shaft, when we put this shaft here through, it's just going to push it right out. And it is a pretty loose fit on there, so I've rubbed the shaft down with some gear oil, and I've lubricated the seal a little bit and the bearing a little bit, just to make sure they slide on well. Because there's kind of a sharp shoulder on this shaft. You don't want it to rip your brand new seal apart. So, and it's gonna be a little bit fussy because we gotta get this part is the same diameter as that. So we're gonna have to get a little fussy to get that through, and then we'll flip it up and get everything in there properly. I've described that terribly. So, see how well this goes in there. There we go. So it'll slide through the first set and then be floppy again. So I'm going to do at this point is you want to grab the edge of that, we'll lift it up like this. We're just going to set it down very gently. You can see that the seal lit up there is already over the sealing surface. So that's good. So we got everything lined up pretty well. And we're just gonna tap it down. We're also gonna try to see how this is off center. I'm just gonna hold it sort of centered and we'll just tap it down real gently. And that should be pretty much what we want. With how much of it got pushed out the first time, I would put just the thinnest little bit of the bearing retainer compound as you can. There we go. All right. There we go. So that one's seated now. So we just got to get the rest of it, sort of put the rest of the way together. So we got the shaft all in. It just took a little more pounding. You really don't want to like beat the hell out of a bearing. We just used a really small, light, soft dead blow. I don't see any other way to do it. So with that aside, the next thing we got to do is put the main gear on the back here and then the snap ring on to keep this captivated, because the only thing I've learned, doesn't matter how hard you had to push it together, if you let gravity take hold, gravity can take it apart for free. So, all right, so we're gonna put this big gear on. If you're doing this at home, for all 7 of you that have this tractor, there's a little shim in here, and that goes up against the bearing. And I'd just take a look at it and see if one side looked like it had more witness marks than the other. It's pretty clear it goes this way. Pop that on. We should have marked which way this gear goes. It's not an awesome thing to do to reverse gears. I mean, this is straight cut and it really doesn't have any wear on it, so I'm not overly concerned, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. Here we go. All right, and then get your good snap ring pliers. And use a new snap ring. The old one looked fine, don't reuse these. I have reused them in a locking hub on a 4x4 and it totally blew up, and it could have been prevented for like 70 cents. So, or even $1.70. Oh, bam, perfect. All right. Oh, crap. So there's a bearing there you got to do first.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. That was just a test fit, just a test fit. We wanted to see that it fit, and it fits. So, there we go. See how it just slid in the end? That's a slip fit, not a press fit. So we got the thing nicely bottomed out. Make sure you wipe off any excess compound. You just don't want that to get inside of things. And we're gonna take the gear. We're gonna put it back on. We know it fits. There we go. And also, that's why you buy good snap rings. That was easy. I fought with these before. So before you put it back on the machine, this is the diff lock assembly. If your diff lock is chewed up, you're SOL basically. Sorry. They use this part on a lot of different tractors, but all has the same part number, and they're all unavailable. So you've got your little ball end that goes inside of there. There's a shaft that the diff lock actuator, I'll call it, goes on. And then don't forget there's a spring. It probably dropped out of the case when you put it together. And there's no depth setting for this shaft here. So you've got to, like, I had to wiggle it, lift it because it had dropped all the way down to the collar there. So just be aware of those things, but that's the order it goes together. So what we're gonna do is clean this really well, clean that really well, get everything set up on there, and then slap it together. All right, guys, when you're bolting up a pattern like this, just a good thing to know is, like, you don't want to just bolt in a circle. You want to jump back and forth and tighten everything down nice and uniform, especially since this is a steel housing made into an aluminum surface. You can warp things and such, so just know that. And these are 29 pounds, roughly 29 pounds for the big bolts, and 19 pounds of torque, foot-pounds of torque for the stud nuts there. All right, guys, so that's it for what we're gonna show of this. The rest of it's just putting on, you know, the ancillary stuff that goes over that. We'll have a picture of the part numbers come up right around here. That everything you need. Total cost in parts was what, like $200. Like $200 in parts, and then if you do a fluid change at the same time, you're looking at another couple $100. It's not a cheap project, but it's a lot cheaper than what would happen otherwise. The real negative side of this story is just that if your diff lock looks completely buggered, you're out of luck, man. I mean, my buddy managed to find one on some used site, and that was from a Ford tractor and not one of these. They don't support it, and the inner lock, we can't even find what part number specifically that is. That might even part of the casting for the differential. So I would say if you got one of these, use your differential sparingly and make sure it's fully engaged. That's all I could say about that. And yeah, so that's all for this week on, you know, working on a tractor again, because everybody seems to hate the Defender but me, and I don't care. Later.